Hey Blazer fans, Mike Barrett, Antonio Harvey here as we are just perusing the NBA schedule newly released, and we're going to walk through some of the things that jump out to us, and you can follow right along as the schedule has been released now. You know, there's different, summer's kind of cut up into chunks. Yeah. You got draft, and then you got summer league, and then you got free agency kind of in the middle of all of that. And then there's a little bit of a lull, and then the schedule comes out. So then it feels like everything kind of continues. And now the schedule's out, so now you start thinking, your mind starts almost going into season mode. Not quite yet, but we do that. Looking at the schedule, I made some notes just as I was kind of glancing at it. And you and I being dads, we always look at holidays. Are we home for Christmas? Yes. Are we home for Thanksgiving? Yes, albeit we get home very late that night before. Gone for Halloween for about the 14th straight year, but everything else looks, you know, I think, I don't know, we always do this, always looked good at the outset. There's no 9-game trips.
You know, there's a couple of trips that stand out to me. I like the early December trip, New York, Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago, Indiana. It's a long trip. It's a lot of days on the road, but it's not that windshield wiper trip. You remember a few seasons ago we played, it was, I think it was Toronto, Miami, Detroit. It's like up and down and up and down. It's like 14,000 miles in one trip. So, you know, these are all clustered together, and it seems like most of the road trips are that way this year.
Yeah, a couple of things I noticed right off the bat. You know, we talked last year about how the team got off to such a great start. It's kind of set up for that again when you look at the home schedule. 8 of the first 11 are at home. Getting Cleveland early is probably a good thing. The Blazers get Cleveland in their third home game. So the Cavs on November 4th. A team like that's going to be somewhat newly constructed, although some of those pieces were there with LeBron in Miami. Kind of nice to get them early in the game, you would think.
To me, that's like the Spurs. You never want to face the Spurs late in the season. You want to get them as early as possible when they're still trying to get some things figured out. You know, LeBron is obviously going back to Cleveland, and then if things pan out the way we're hearing and Kevin Love goes there, they're going to take some time. They're going to have to take some time to figure out who has the ball in their hands in what situation. So to get them with the third home game, fourth game of the season, really puts the Blazers in a good position.
One multiple game road trip in November, and that is the trip that you mentioned, Boston, Philly, and Charlotte. And then, you know, December is tough. December has 10 road games, 6 home games. 6 of the first 7 of the month are on the road. So, as I mentioned, the nice thing about December is, for those who travel, we are home for Christmas.
Yes.
And I did notice that as well. The Blazers come back after the Oklahoma City. Now, there's a couple of tough trips in December. First long one is New York, Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago, Indiana, the one you talked about. Then the one that's much tougher, and this is a brutal one.
Yes.
December 19th, it starts at San Antonio, at New Orleans, at Houston, at Oklahoma City. That is tough. January, a little relief, especially early in January, following the brutal December.
And it helps too, and because as you said earlier, the number of home games early in the season, then you go out on the road, you take some lumps, and that can disrupt your team a little bit. But then you get that run at the end of February, the end of December rather, and you get a chance to really recover, get your team back under you, get some practices in, get your team back on the right footing, and then you go back out on the road again for some games. But you've had a chance to reestablish yourself.
So essentially, one road game between December 23rd and January 14th. That's pretty nice. In March, I mentioned how tough it is. There's a 5-game trip in March. Toronto, Washington, Miami, Orlando, Memphis. So not brutal. Not easy, but not brutal. There is one stretch in March, I think it's toward the end, starting I think on the 15th. 9 games in 13 days. So they pack the games in. I mean, you're going to pay for this long break somewhere. And it looks like Portland's paying for it in the second half of March. April, interesting because it seems like the Blazers usually have a lot of home games late. 3 of the final 4 games of the season are on the road, and they're not easy. At Golden State, which, by the way, is the only visit to Golden State this year for Portland, and it doesn't come until April 9th. How weird is that?
But it always amazes me, and have you noticed that whenever we go to Golden State, it's always the second night of a back-to-back, and it's always a home game.
It's like Denver.
And then go to, and I hate both.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I hate Denver more because it takes 3 hours to get from the airport to the hotel.
Yeah, and that's with good weather. The other thing, you talk about that stretch, and when you look at the end of the season, the difficulty of it is at Golden State, then Utah, at Oklahoma City, at Dallas. Now, sometimes final couple of games are meaningless. If they are meaningful this year, that is a tough week to end the regular season, especially if you're jockeying for position that you hope you are at that point.
Well, I was about to say there's no doubt that the team will be jockeying for position. I've actually talked to a few people without having looked at the schedule. I've gone on record as saying I don't know if the Blazers will win more games. I think they'll be a better team and they'll be better suited for the playoffs. But you look at that end of season schedule. We talked about those 5 games on the road. I think you said 9 out of 13 on the road at one stretch. It's difficult to have success when you play that many road games. So for me, the Blazers have up until about March 15th to set themselves in stone, because after that you're going to be right in that whatever range it is, be it 3 to 6 or 5 to 7, whatever it is. You got to be at that position when you get to the middle of March, because if not, it's going to be a tough road.
Another thing we always look at are misses, Western Conference misses. What teams do you play only 3 times as opposed to 4? And this year it happens to be you miss a traditional Sacramento home game, which is tough because that's usually a game you can win. You do miss a Golden State away game, so maybe that balances itself out because that's always a tough place to win. You only go to New Orleans once. I know it's not good for you because you like it down there.
New Orleans.
I'm just fine with only going to New Orleans once. And Houston, Blazers go to Houston twice, only get them once at home, which is kind of odd. And that's not so good because that's a team you could be depending on a season series from, and you'd love to have them again at home. So only Houston 3 times this year. And you'd think with the extended All-Star break that maybe it would add back-to-backs, but it doesn't look like it has. For my count, and that's, again, a brief count, 19 back-to-back sets, which I think is exact same as last year.
It is exactly the same. And, I really think with the additions of Steve Blake and Chris Kamens, the team is better suited for those situations because you won't be relying on Dame as much. And as good as Mo Williams was for the team last year, I think Steve Blake is a better fit. He's not a better player. We've had people go back and forth with this. I don't think Steve Blake is a better player than Mo Williams, but I think he's better for this team. And I don't know if there's a big man in the country that is better suited for what the Blazers do than Chris Kaman. He can play both positions. One
they circled was November 21st, Chicago, because that's an early season visit from Chicago. And Derrick Rose has looked very, very good over the summer, but that will be his return, ironically, to the place where he injured the knee last year.
And it was early in the season last year when he did it as well.
Indiana comes in on December 4th. That'll be interesting. What are they going to look like with no Paul George? December 15th, San Antonio, the defending champs, come into town. Oklahoma City, February 27th. That's a tough week. Houston, their lone visit to Portland is on March 11th, the rematch of the first round of the playoffs last year. And New Orleans, I think that visit by New Orleans on April 4th, if they stay remotely healthy, that's going to be a battle of 2 probably playoff teams.
There's no doubt about it. With what they've done, adding Amir Sheik and where they were and where they played last year, the style of play they have with the players they have now, I think they're going to be a playoff team. The team that I worry about, and when I say worry, not in a good way, like they're going to be good. I don't know if Houston is going to be as polished as people think they are. They lost a lot when they lost Chandler Parsons.
Had a rough summer. All right, Blazers did not have a rough summer, and neither did we, but we have a little bit more of it left. We're not quite ready yet, but this schedule makes it feel like the season is right around the corner. Blazer fans, thanks for watching us and checking us out. Be sure to stay tuned in to all our programming here on TBTV and, of course, on Trailblazers Courtside, which kicks off again in early September. Bye for now.